The old man's finally gone. He lived so long for nothing. Now you can claim his life insurance, right? I can finally be compensated for the misfortune of getting married to you. Show me how much you're getting now. I have no interest in joining your impoverished dad's hick funeral. The words that came out of my husband's mouth were no condolence, but pure insults to my dad and me at the funeral. Not only that, here, my contribution to a gift of assistance. Pick them up. Ching ching. He threw coins from his pocket at me and let out the scornful laugh. There was no sign of the kind man who gave me the lucky silver dime and encouragement in the past. How did it all come to this? My vision was blurred by tears of rage and misery. Suddenly, a man appeared in front of me. He plays a crucial part in what was to come next. I was 35 years old, working at a confectionery plant. My ex-husband and I met at the previous work. I was a fresh graduate and had no clue what I was doing at work. Why am I making so many mistakes? Everyone else but me is getting it right. I thought we all had minor flaws at first, but I kept struggling to learn the new tasks. We all worked independently, and the company didn't create a friendly environment to support each other, so I was totally lost. When I made mistakes, my colleagues were burdened. I was the type to drag my mistake with me, so I was getting crushed by their weight. One day, it became too much to bear, and I hid crying in a corner of a small kitchen at work. A guy who happened to find me there was my ex-husband. What's wrong? You want to talk? Thank you. I made a mistake again. He was 2 years older than me and had been working there for a while. He listened to my gloom and doom and made me smile. What a nice guy, I thought to myself and calmed down a bit in his presence. My ex remembered something and pulled out his wallet. He picked a coin and said, "This is a lucky silver dime from 1944. I hope this brings you much good luck. Here." I swore to myself that I would always keep it with me no matter what. I was head over heels for him afterward and asked a colleague to help to get closer to him. We eventually started dating and fell in love with each other, so we got married. I was purely ecstatic about our happy life together, but there was one person who didn't agree with me. It was my dad, who was devoted his daily farm all his life. He was a man of few words and had never spoken to me much growing up, but he had a clear objection to my marriage. I believe it's a rush to get married to him now. I don't trust him. He looks like a nice guy, but I sense there is someone else hiding. You should wait a little longer and got to know him better. Wait, I choose him. How do you know he is or isn't good for me after meeting him once? Besides, you've never given me any fatherly advice before, and now you put on your father's mask and give me a lecture? I am an adult. I don't need your permission. Hearing him against my decision for the first time, I became upset and blamed him more than I should have. He never said a word about it after that. I ignored his warning, got married, and left home. We had never gotten in touch since then. It's all good. I have my husband. I'm happy with my marriage. I chatted to myself and pretended there was nothing wrong in my life. The truth was, my reality wasn't going the way I imagined. A little after we got married, my ex started acting arrogant toward me. Hey, where's my dinner? Didn't I tell you to clean the house? Aren't you embarrassed living in a mess like this? I want to wear this tomorrow, so iron it. And don't forget to polish my shoes. Even though he treated me badly, I tried my best to balance my work and home life. I managed to perfect housework, not to be criticized. My ex took it for granted and never showed his appreciation to me. Yay me! Good job! Huh? Of course, you should be able to do all this as a wife. Your screw must be loose, asking for a compliment. If this was praiseworthy, you should get on your knees and thank me for my job. He got promoted to manager, which he used to disgrace me all the time. All your work proposals are lame and boring. They show you were born and raised in the dead of the countryside. Your existence stinks of mud. Not only he degraded me, but he also disrespected my family. I was getting fed up with him. In addition to this, he made fun of my hobby, which was drawing sketches of new dessert ideas. I was really into it and spent a lot of my time drawing. He shrugged them off and criticized them as terrible design and said I was wasting my time. In the end, he escalated to looking down on my family and the daily products that were sent to us. Eh, smell of a savage. Send me T-bone instead. It's a shame your family is too poor to send me anything of value. He spouted out his venom. What a moron. It was disgusting that he couldn't appreciate the kindness of others. I should have told him off, but I disliked confrontation and couldn't stand up for myself. I was also worried about being lost without him if he kicked me out. I wouldn't have had anywhere to go. The thought of it kept me from arguing with him. He knew he had control over me, so his behavior worsened. One day, I cooked a white stew using the milk from my family. As I kind of expected, ew, it smells rancid. Stinks of poverty. I can't eat poor people's food. He viciously criticized. To be honest, I was prepared for his slamming and was going to just shrug it off. But he went a step farther this time. Before it stinks up the whole house with the odor of poverty, I'm gonna trash it. I feel like I'm in jail being served such food. Seriously, you're the worst wife. He dumped the pot with the stew inside into a bin. I finally exploded and started yelling. How could you throw the food I took time to make? You're disgusting to waste perfectly good food like that. Instead of apologizing, he snapped back. Blah, blah, blah. You're so dull, useless, and annoying. Who do you think you're speaking to? I'm better than you. You're just the weight on my shoulders. Don't need you anymore. And then he scornfully told me why he married me. I thought a 35-year-old hag would have a lot of savings. You seemed like you were out of the dating loop all your life. I just wanted to take your money and use you like a child robot. You wanted me anyway, so it's a win-win, right? I was aghast by his unjust and malevolent revelation, and his nonchalant demeanor. Was the reason we delayed our marriage to make me save more money? It was all your scheme? My savings are almost gone because you've been splurging, you know. You were right, but you never mentioned your savings are almost gone. How's that my fault? It's your job to take care of the finance, so you take responsibility. A penniless wife is of no value to me, lower than your farm animals. He ranted in a vile manner, and then he suddenly pulled out my sketches from the shelf. He ripped the pages into pieces as he shouted, "Pathetic!" threw them all over the place, and walked out of the room. What have I ever done to you? I just tried to do my best to make our lives better. Of course, I couldn't sleep at all, but cried my eyes out that night. The next day, "We're getting divorced. Get out." He didn't even look up from the paper he was reading. Okay. I was thinking the same in bed last night, so I simply agreed with him. I collected my things in silence and left the house. When I stepped outside, the face of my dad, who disagreed with this marriage, popped into my head. He somehow knew we weren't going to work out. Why was I so adamant about his words back then?
I'm very sorry, Dad. Tears welled up in my eyes. I wondered what he would say if I told him I was getting a divorce. Would he have been mad at me for not listening to him? Would he have been disappointed? He might no longer have spoken to our daughter, who snapped at him in the first place. I couldn't find answers to the questions, and I started living alone without the courage to go and tell him. I managed to find an apartment with my meager savings, but my ex spread a bad rumor about me, and I became very uneasy working there. I was mentally exhausted. When I was absent-mindedly going through job ads on the internet, I came across a listing of a bakery manufacturer. Working as a pâtissier used to be my dream. I may have been too old to change a career, but never try, never know. I was given a fresh start working at a manufacturer, and learning new skills gave me back the confidence. Once I was back to myself, I decided to do one thing I had been putting off. I planned to visit my dad and tell him about my divorce and a new career. That night, I got a call from my mom, who was sobbing. "Your dad passed away in the hospital today. Please come home. The memorial service is the day after." It was so sudden that my mind went blank. I immediately packed up my things and drove as fast as I could to the ranch. And then I saw him lying peacefully in a casket. It was too late. I was too late. When I saw the shriveled corpse of my dad, I finally got a grasp of the reality, and the waves of regret washed over me. I didn't come clean about my divorce, and never got to apologize to him. "Why did you leave so soon, Dad?" "I was going to tell you everything. I'm sorry for troubling you and not coming sooner." I soaked up my pillow with my tears all night without sleep. 2 days later, his memorial service took place at the ranch. I was too devastated that I was like a zombie. Then suddenly, my ex appeared before me. He learned about my dad's passing through a mutual friend. I expected him to mourn my dad as long as he was at the service, but my expectation was quickly shut down.
Hey, so when are you getting your inheritance? Since I took care of you, you need to pay me for that. I've waited so long for the country bumpkin to die. Anyway, a hillbilly memorial is so plain, isn't it? Don't tell me you don't have money. Just sell this useless ranch to get more. It's your chance to make me think that I was lucky to have married you.
Even on such a solemn occasion, my ex showed his despicable self and tried to dishonor my dad and me. "Leave now. There's no place for a vile man here." I was outraged by his immoral behavior. He didn't care and continued with his rant.
"Pay me then, I will leave. I don't even want to be in this hick town. You always make things complicated with me, so it takes longer than needed. That's why I divorced you." He sniggered, blaming me for our divorce. Even though we were at the far corner of the room, away from the others, people were starting to get curious about us. "Here, my contribution to a gift of assistance." He suddenly put a scornful smile, as if a great idea came into his head, and shoved his hand in his pocket. "So the wicked perish at the presence of me." He imitated a priest performing an exorcism and threw the coins at me. Ching ching. The sound of coins hitting the floor echoed through the room. He kept his dreadful smile on his face and picked up a dime from the floor. I exactly knew what he meant. Where did the kind guy I first met go? He gave me the lucky silver dime. How did it all come to this? My tears flowed uncontrollably from the despair. Then, a man walked up in front of me. "I apologize for my delay. My deep condolences to you. I'm very sorry about your dad." A man in a luxurious suit spoke to me. My ex looked surprised and pushed me aside.
He quickly put on a broad smile and raised his hand to shake the man's hand. The man happened to be his important contact for the big project he had been working on. He was blabbing non-stop to the man, who glanced at me over my ex's shoulder. My ex saw it and then started shaming me.
She's my useless ex-wife. She thinks crying would make everything better. She sits high up on the throne and have no intention of improving herself. I'm too ashamed that I was just giving her a lecture.
He laughed lightheartedly. He must have been high, thinking he looked like an authoritative figure, but the man remained stoic and spoke calmly.
I take back the contract with your company. What?
The blood drained from my ex's face hearing the man.
She is a key person in the project. I would never associate with a company that humiliates my excellent employee in public. This dull woman is your excellent employee? Must be some mistake.
Ignoring my ex, who was going frantic, the man called his boss on the spot and said the contract had been cancelled. Then my ex's phone rang immediately after. His voice was trembling and kept apologizing into his phone. My dad's ranch was a small scale, but the quality of his product was known to be one of the best in the industry. The taste was even praised by famous pâtissiers. It was a pure coincidence that I started working at my current job. My big boss was a fan of my dad's milk and butter, and trusted my sense of taste that had been nurtured by the top quality. My dad didn't tell my ex about his ranch in detail, and I too never boasted about my family business, so he never found out the truth. Looking back on it, I thought maybe my dad was testing his character. My ex finished his call and turned to me with a ghost-like face. He must have thought that his career was over without this project. He all of a sudden changed his demeanor and pleaded with me.
Please, talk to him and make him change his mind. I didn't really mean to harm you. Please forgive me.
An apology only for the sake of self-preservation. I had reached my boiling point and let out all my frustration to him.
Huh? You self-centered bastard? What are you talking about? Do you think crying would make things better? Right back at you. One of the sketches you tore apart that day is the origin of this project. Now you want to sell my lame crepe made with my dad's milk that you said stunk of poverty? The project that my ex was working on for the company was the sales of crepes I created and supervised using a cream made from fresh milk from my dad's ranch. When he found out the detail, "No one told me. Why haven't you mentioned it to me?"
He snapped at me and kicked the chairs around him. The man stoically picked up the chairs and put them back in place.
You may not realize, but there are many people from our industry here. There is no point in resisting anymore. Your misdemeanor will be spread in no time. You have no place.
My ex fell to the floor in desperation and pleaded with me.
Please help me. I'm gonna lose everything. I apologize for what I have done, so please.
He clung to me miserably. Well, I owe you for something. I intentionally used a sweet tone of voice. He looked up at me smiling, thinking he was saved. Looking at my egocentric ex, I hammered the final nail in the coffin. This would be my last payment to you. I grabbed the lucky silver coin he gave me when we first met from my purse, lowered it to his eye level, and then dropped it on the floor. You make your own luck. Hope you understand that someday. He was stunned and frozen like a statue. Ironically, the table had turned and he started bawling. Be quiet! You still want to keep distracting the memorial? Stop acting like a baby. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You're the lamest person right now. Good riddance to bad luck. There was absolutely nothing he could do or say, so he ran out of the house with his tail between his legs. A week after my dad's funeral, my ex, who was responsible for the failure of the project, was severely reprimanded by his superiors. When he was kicked out of the team, it was discovered that the project budget had been embezzled by him. He was fired from the company and criminally charged. He became exhausted by the fact that all his bad deeds had come back to him. He finally learned his lesson and supposedly was living in a shabby apartment alone. My dad's ranch was decided to be run by his lawyer staff who had inherited his motto. They maintained the same quality of products and were gradually expanding the scale of their business. The man who canceled the project told me that he knew my dad for a long time. He met up with my dad after I was hired by his company. Your daughter is putting a lot of effort into her work amidst her divorce. I would like to support her as much as I can. He had blurted out about my divorce, but I was thankful that my dad at least knew. Oh, she's divorcing. I guess my instinct was right. It's heartbreaking to know that she was being abused by that fool, and even my family was disrespected. Knowing her well, I worry that she pushed herself too much. I'm ashamed of myself for not reaching out to her when she was suffering. I want to watch her rebuild her own happy life from now on. Even though he was told about the bad news of my divorce, he apparently looked relieved. It may be just my wish, but I believe she would be an outstanding patissier. I know I'm asking a lot from you, but please look after my daughter. My dad held the man's hand tightly in both of his for a while. I couldn't stop crying while I was listening to the story. Finally finding out what my dad thought of me made me feel so grateful. I had been hating myself for being miserable and crying in front of my ex-husband. I felt that I could really look forward and build my own life now. I'm sorry, Dad, for not being at your side in your last moments. There have been many struggles, but I'm better now. I'm living a full life, learning to be a patissier. I'm going to use a lot of your products that you conserved all those years. Please watch over me from heaven. Love you so much. With my heart full of gratefulness to my dad. I promise to keep working hard to be a good patissier as he believed.